If you're applying for federal government jobs, you will sometimes get an email on your eligibility status and whether you were qualified or referred. So what does this mean? Let's talk about it. First, understand there are two main reasons why you were found not eligible. It was either the way you answered the questionnaire. You can easily screen yourself out by the way you're answering those questions, or it is because you do not have the required specialized experience and you were found ineligible. This can once again come down to the questionnaire or because an HR specialist determined that you do not have the correct experience. An example of screening yourself out is if you were applying to a ladder position of a GS9 to GS12 and you're currently a GS7. Well, if you're a GS7, you're only going to qualify for the GS9. You would not have the experience to qualify for the 11 or 12. So as such, you would click, I do not want to be considered for these grade levels. USA Jobs will clearly ask if you would like to be considered for the 11 and 12, but you would mark no, you do not want to be considered. That will trigger an email being sent to you stating that you were found ineligible for 11 and 12 because you do not have the proper experience, which is fine because you were not trying to get to those grade levels anyway. You were only trying to get to the GS9 level. Another example is if the actual job announcement mentions that only one or two hiring paths will be accepted for consideration and you're not part of that hiring path. You can clearly tell what pathways a job announcement is available to by looking at the icons next to the announcement. And this information is also under the Who May Apply section. If the job announcement is only open to recent graduates and you're not a recent graduate, then you will be found ineligible. Okay, so you were found eligible for a job announcement. What does that mean? Doesn't really mean too much. It basically means you're going to the next step and an HR specialist will review your resume to find out if you're qualified, and if you are qualified, how qualified are you? Sometimes we can be placed into different categories of qualified, such as qualified, well qualified, or best qualified. And many times there are points added into each category, with the best qualified being between 95 and 100 points. Keep in mind that veterans preference adds to this point total. So if there is only a total of 100 points and you have veteran preference on top of that, then you can see a score of 105 or 110. You can have 110 points out of 100. And not every applicant is going to know their point score. So if you didn't receive an email with your score, do not be discouraged. Also, keep in mind that just because you were eligible or you were referred to a job, that does not mean you're guaranteed an interview. At no point through the hiring process will you be guaranteed an interview. There are no guarantees. And many people think this. Many people feel like I'm eligible, so I should be interviewed. But the truth of the matter is there's dozens, if not hundreds of people that are eligible. And HR is only going to select the best qualified. If you are eligible and qualified, you could end up receiving a referral. That means HR is given a list of names to the hiring manager who will then decide who they want to interview. A lot of times they pick between 4 and 6 of the best candidates and they will interview them. Then the best candidate is selected and a tentative job offer is given to them. However, a hiring manager can interview 6 people and decide none of them are a good fit. So they do not have to hire anyone. And what will happen generally in that situation is the job announcement will be reposted to get more candidates and more interviews will happen. There are also cases where there's no qualified candidates, so no one gets interviewed. And once again, the job announcement is reposted. In other cases, the hiring manager doesn't even need to interview. They simply can look at your resumes and make a selection and extend a job offer just from reading your resume. Although this is not quite as common. So when will you get interviewed? Once you receive an email or a phone call from HR asking for an interview, they'll give you a set of times and you'll pick a time, a date, and an hour, and then you'll be set up for your interview. Until then, you will have no interview. So I know a lot of people are wondering how many interviews should I be expecting based on my referrals or my applications. And one simple way I've understood this is that if you have a strong resume, you should receive about a 50% referral rate, meaning if you applied 50 times, at least 25 of them should end up being referred. From all your referrals, you can then expect roughly a 20% interview request rate. So if you apply 100 times on USA Jobs, I would expect about 10 interviews plus or minus 1 or 2. This is not a science. This is not guaranteed, but this gives you a frame of reference. Keep in mind throughout this process, you have to remember to keep applying for other jobs. And the jobs you're applying for, make sure you are well qualified. The resume should speak to the job series. Number 2, make sure you're using a strong resume. And number 3, make sure you're applying to the right locations. Also, always pay special attention to the job announcement. In that announcement, you will find documents that are required sometimes to be sent, such as a performance appraisal, or a writing sample, or transcripts. And if you don't send these documents, you will automatically disqualify yourself. The same thing goes for the questionnaire. If you're going through the questionnaire and you find yourself not marking best qualified, if you're finding yourself putting no, you do not possess certain skills, that could be an indicator that you might not want to finish it. You might not be qualified for that job announcement. So do not waste your time and continue to apply. You want to make sure you're able to confidently put that you're best qualified for the majority, if not all, of the questionnaire answers. Otherwise, you could end up disqualifying yourself way before an HR specialist even looks at it. So how can you find out if you're eligible or referred? First, you should receive an email from the agency, but that doesn't always happen. So you can also look on usajobs.gov and you can click on the application status, and sometimes they update that. But then again, sometimes they don't, and you will be left not knowing your status. All things considered, there are 2 things that you have absolute control over. Number 1 is the frequency in which you're applying. Number 2 is how strong your resume is. Work on those 2 things and do not worry about when HR is going to send you the invite for an interview. If you would like to know why you're not receiving any new referrals, check out this video next. Well, let me know, have you been receiving a lot of referrals and interview requests lately? Let me know down below. If you want to see more videos like this, please click like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.